Good morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get over to this here, and let's bring up my football gods here. Wow. It is Saturday morning, and I hope that you guys are having a great Saturday. I hope that the weekend is very, very productive. Tomorrow afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern, we'll be doing our Dallas Cowboys event show, where if you are a channel member, you can actually call in and be part of the Zoom call. If you're not, it's okay, because it's live stream, and it's an opportunity for us, the fans, and you guys to kind of get together and relieve some stress about what's going on, or what you're looking forward to, whatever's on your mind about the Dallas Cowboys. And I have really gotten to the point where I look forward to Sunday afternoon because it's cathartic. It helps me feel better about my own feelings about what's going on, because we can share in on the misery and the doubt and the hopes. So tune in tomorrow. I woke up this morning, thank God. Every day when you get to be my age, every day is a blessing. Okay. My fireside chat last night was kind of emotional, because looking at Rayfield Wright passing, seeing how full of life he was just in August when I saw him, and now knowing that he's gone, it kind of hit home even more so than usual. We've lost so many friends and family members and things, and so many of you guys that I've talked to that have lost people throughout this pandemic and even before, doing the stand up for cancer and stuff, and hearing the stories from everybody who donated and things and their reasons why that they were putting in there. They put into perspective how precious life is. And so last night was one of those nights that, that emotion was just kind of there, where I'm thankful for being 56 years old and still here, and trying to figure out what I can do for the time that I have left to do as much as I can to achieve and leave my mark on this place. Because when you're gone, it doesn't matter how much money you have or anything like that, you're not taking it with you. Your legacy is the people's lives you've touched. And let me get away from that. So when I woke up this morning and got out of bed, I had some really fresh thoughts going through my head. There were no guns, no tanks, okay, all right, I'm sorry. I lost it. I went into some Run DMC. That's not exactly what happened, but I did have some fresh ideas in my head. And this quote popped into my head. Back in 1899, I love history. I love history so much, because you can learn from the past. And I know people, 1899. What does 1899 got to do with today? It has everything to do with today. Everything. Because really there are no new ideas. It just evolves with the same concepts. It's just better technology. See, Charles H. Dewey, he was the commissioner of the U.S. Patent Office. If you come up with a great idea, and you want to make sure you make all the money on it, you get a patent on it. My brother had his Ulu knives that, he learned about the Eskimo knives and things in Alaska, and he made his own a certain way that made it more conducive on the handles. And he worked for several years to get a patent on it. And so once you get that patent, that means for 5 years or however long it is, if somebody uses that patented piece, they got to pay you, or they can't use it. And so the patent office has been around forever. Well, in 1889, Charles H. Dewey has been widely quoted as saying, "We can close the patent office because everything that can be invented has been invented." Let me say that again. He is quoted. Now here's where it gets to be interesting. He may or may not have actually said that. Okay? Throughout history, we've heard that this is what has been said. And this is because I did some research this morning. Because all of that stuff, when it's been passed on. And so evidently, the first time it was actually quoted was like in the 60s, where they coined it to him. And then a person started doing research on here. And the first time they actually found that quote was in a comic magazine where they were saying, about inventions. They said, oh, we can close the patent office because everything's invented. But they can't actually find where he said it. But be that as it may, he will forever be known as the guy that thinks that everything was invented, right or wrong. There's nothing else to invent. And that is Stephen Jones today. See, here's the problem for the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a dinosaur. And see, when I woke up this morning, something I've always done. Every year, I have tried to evolve and change what I'm doing. This locker right here used to be over there. And it was the only one. I made this one, I think, in 2017. And it was a totally different look from what I had before. I got some better cameras and a microphone. Well, cheap microphone. The next year, I built this one. Had 2 lockers. I moved them over here. The next year, I put the 3rd one. The next year, I ended up getting the Alienware computer that, ended up being able to do a lot more things on it. And then I ended up doing the outdoor studio and evolved. I evolved and changed what I'm doing because back when I first started doing it, it was kind of like, me and Law and Vosh, on YouTube. In fact, the Dallas Cowboys YouTube channel only had a couple of thousand subscribers. There weren't the Mike Fishers or the 105 fans or the Jeff Kavanaughs. Oh, Shengo, of course, the Godfather. But through the course of time, now you've got Colin Cowherd in the volume. You've got a couple of hundred, seems like, Dallas Cowboys YouTubers that are going to say, you stole my content. You've got now ESPN, Fox, CBS, all now, like it's the gold rush running into YouTube. And what you may have been doing before may have worked before. But now, you got to get on the cutting edge. They're coming in. They're coming after what you did. They've watched you, and they've figured out what you've done. And now they're doing it better. They're adding extra bells and whistles and personalities. They're grouping up. They're evolving. And if I sit here and I'm like, everything's been invented that I can do, then I'll go to the wayside. Think about where Borders Books and I can't remember the other bookstore, and Amazon was selling online books. Border Books could say, we're the biggest bookseller in the world. We're great. We don't need to change. We've got books. We got more books than anybody else. We got people that are reading books. Amazon said, yeah, that's kind of cool. We're selling books. But maybe, since we're selling books, maybe we can sell some coffee and some snacks for people to read, to eat while they're reading, and coffee so that way they have it. And, of course, we can sell coffee mugs because they need a coffee mug to put the coffee in, right? And, well, if they need a coffee mug and coffee, they're going to need a reading light, so we can sell some reading lights. And if they need a reading light, they probably need a desk or maybe a comfortable chair. Oh, how about a massaging chair? Oh, shoot. If they have a massaging chair, they'll probably want a nice little carpet to go with it. And see, they evolved. And now you look at Border Books and you look at Amazon. Night and day difference. They evolved. They changed with the dynamics that people don't read books anymore. People are into videos. Let's get into TV. Let's go ahead and get the most popular thing out there. Let's go partner with the NFL. That is why Jeff Bezos can go in space anytime he wants to. He was thinking ahead. So here's the thing. You got Stephen Jones who believes, and maybe he saw the movie Moneyball and is equating that to football. I would understand Stephen Jones being stuck to his guns if what he was doing worked and was winning Super Bowls. But it's not. You can go back to the 90s when the Dallas Cowboys were winning Super Bowls. Jerry Jones was a Maverick. Now, some of the pieces and elements that they'd had before, they're doing. Bringing in a lot of different players, trying them out, trying to find the ones that fit. And they've done good things with this. You know, when you find a Jaron Kearse, when you find a Brian Aguilar, Agar, or punter, when you find those guys in free agency, dirt cheap, then that's great. That is a great step. When you're able to draft a Diggs and in the second year have him have 11 interceptions and you get a Micah Parsons, man, amen. That's the great part about the organization. Will McClay is finding talent, sometimes dirt cheap where people aren't looking. That's good. That's good. But the thing that took the Cowboys over the top was actually taking some chances on some bigger name people. Charles Haley, who had issues. Going out and getting Deion Sanders. And if Stephen Jones had been in charge, we wouldn't have gotten prime time. We wouldn't have. He literally took his dad and threw him against the wall. Are you crazy spending this kind of money? Enter Stephen Jones being the money guy, the contract guy, who believes, okay, we're not going to waste a whole lot of money like, say, the Washington football team. I mean, I get that. You can go down the laundry list and say Washington just goes for a name player from Bruce Smith past his prime to prime time past his prime, you know, going through and getting the Landon Collins or the Josh Normans or the Albert Hainsworth. And you can go down the litany of all of the free agents, the Adam Archulettas, and say the Washington football team didn't do jack with all of these free agents. In fact, you can look and say it hindered them because of the money that they put. But even with all the money that they spent on those free agents, I don't ever remember hearing that the Washington football team has been in cap hell. This is what mystifies me, is all of these free agent signings, that big ones that blow the market away, that makes them the offseason champion, that I don't ever remember the Washington football team being in cap hell. Remember them franchise tagging Kirk Cousins twice, and then turning around and spending, $68 million for Alex Smith, while they're grabbing Josh Norman and grabbing Landon Collins and things. They keep spending money on top of money, but somehow you never, ever hear that. The Dallas Cowboys, which have always been penny pinching, it seems, we don't spend the big money on free agents. The last big free agent signing you could say would have been Greg Hardy for the 1 year, but that was only $8 million. So you look at this and say, what the hell is going on here? How is it we don't go and get big name free agents like other teams do, but yet we're always in cap hell? Be that as it may, back to Charles H. Duell, who said everything's been invented. Stephen Jones has it stuck in his head that you can't use free agents that are primo free agents to win. But the reality is, the NFL is constantly evolving. Constantly. Because now, the new way of doing business is, instead of taking the draft picks and reaching for that quarterback in the draft, take those draft picks, build a team. Build a team. And then you go out and you get the quarterback. Go ahead and see, at least if you're going to take a risk on getting a quarterback, Russell Wilson has been a great quarterback. He's Super Bowl champion. You've seen the numbers from Matthew Stafford. You know, he could fit the system that we're putting in. You know, we'll go out and we'll get extra pieces for him. And don't say that Dak Prescott, with the talent that he has around him, you know, that he's a failure. When you look at the Rams and the Rams say, you know, we got Cooper Kupp. We got Jefferson over there. You know what? That's not enough. How about we go get Odell too? How about we go get Odell? They understand that you need that little extra to get over the hump. Cowboys have done great building rosters through the draft. But the thing is, Stephen Jones is stuck in that mentality that that's the only thing and the only way that you can win. But it doesn't win because in the end, we have a few players that end up getting injured or don't show up. We don't have that extra talent to continue to steamroll. We're too thin with the troops. And as we go into this draft, where we'll be able to get some players, and we probably will get some good players. The problem is, it's still not enough to compete against the other teams that are going out and saying, damn the cap. We're going to get the extra talent to get over the top. And so that's where I am right now. Now, for me, that's kind of given me a new hunger for the studio down here. And I've been racking my brains on what to do and having the time to do it because I've had some great ideas of things that I want to do, but they all cost a lot of money. And if it doesn't cost money, it costs time. And unfortunately, time is money as well. But sometimes you can't afford not to spend money. If I was still sitting in a lawn chair in front of my TV over there doing videos, I probably wouldn't be in the same position that I am now with the YouTube channel. Oh, sure, some people would watch. People would watch, but not as many. And this is where you have to understand the best place to invest is in yourself. And if without that investment, you might survive, but you're not going to be in Amazon. So let's listen to what Moose Johnson has to say the Dallas Cowboys issues are.
Team that is, I don't believe, as talented this morning as they were about 2 months ago as the Dallas Cowboys. 3 rings with the Cowboys. Darryl Moose Johnson, Fox Sports broadcaster and analyst as well, now joining us here in the herd. 7 of his 11 years was in the playoffs. He's also the USFL's executive vice president of football operations. That's around the corner. You know, it's different. Whenever I talk to you, I always ask you. You live in Dallas. You can read the Dallas Morning News. You can hear talk radio. You hear the local sportscasters. So you live in the belly of that. So we're outsiders. So our takeaway has been bumpy offseason, lost a lot of really unique talents. Randy Gregory is a unique player, and Amari Cooper. How is it landing in Dallas today, this last 2 months?
I think the big thing is what's going on with the offensive line. That's the one that I've had my focus on with Lyle Collins and Connor Williams leaving, Tyron Smith near the end of his career. So that's been the one positional group that I thought really needed some attention given to it, and they just haven't seemed to have been able to hit the way that they did 5-8 years ago when they were adding players to that position. So I think the starting 5 has always been one of the cornerstones for the Dallas Cowboy franchise when you talk about them having success, and I think that if anything for me going into this season is how do they shore up that offensive line? How do they get back to being able to control the game through running the football?
You know, Jerry has always been, I think, more than patient in terms of coaches. I felt he's given coaches a year more. Barry Switzer maybe a year more. Chan Gailey. But I did think Jerry was annoyed at the end of last season. That clock management stuff gets coaches in trouble. It got Andy Reid in trouble in Philadelphia. It's just something we can all watch and play along with, and the Dak ran, and they didn't get the ball down. Did you ever think there was a moment that Mike McCarthy could have been in trouble?
No, I didn't. No, and the whole clock thing, for me, you could tell how confident Coach McCarthy was. They had rehearsed that, they had practiced that, but you never practiced that exact scenario, right? You don't practice at 14 seconds going downfield a little bit too much. Who's bringing that football in and spotting that football at your practice in that scenario, and how much more efficient was it done than could possibly happen during the course of the game? And we saw that. You can practice something and do it over and over again and have that number in your head that we feel confident at 14 seconds. We were always 16. And if football is a game of inches, it's also a game of seconds when you get into clock management. So I thought at 14 it was a little bit close, but then you hear everything that they did to get ready for that. But you can never simulate what's happening in that game. The umpire was behind. He was late starting his movement down the field. He had trouble getting in and getting out. So you don't account for those things at practice. So that's just one of those unintended consequences that happens during the course of a game that costs you a playoff game. So at that point, do you make a coaching change? I don't think so, because he's done enough at his time in Dallas, to earn a right for another year, I felt.
Jim Irsay got very irritated with Carson Wentz. Wentz was not vaccinated, nor was Amari. And Jerry, to his credit, was very authentic. His disappointment. This is a team. I mean, you went into games knowing you weren't going to touch the ball. You were going to block. Those Philadelphia games were, you had to prepare for those for weeks. The Amari thing, there's a Dak with Amari and without. He's a better quarterback with him. He's a tremendous tactician. That vax thing, we don't talk about it now, but Jerry was publicly annoyed. Do you think it was a factor in moving off him?
Well, I thought that there was a potential, regardless of what his vaccination status was, just with, the contract and the way everything was structured from a financial standpoint, in and out of the lineup a little bit. You're going to have to make a move. If you don't sign him, Michael Gallup is no longer in the picture. There's going to be other guys who are not in the picture. I think because of the contracts they signed, when you talk about Ezekiel Elliott, Amari Cooper, and then Dak Prescott, you had put yourself into a position where you were going to lose guys or have to make really, really hard decisions at some point down the road based on salary cap. And that's just kind of come back and bit him again. So there's probably a lot of things that factored into it. I think one of the things that it's going to be interesting to watch this year is I think Amari Cooper makes everybody in the wide receiver room better. Everybody you talk to talks about how good he is at route running, being able to see what's happening, playing that leverage off the defender, and being able to share that information and help the other guys. Is Michael Gallup as good as he is without having had the opportunity to spend time around Amari Cooper?
Coming
I don't
back
know.
From an ACL.
So I think that's going to be the interesting thing to watch this year. I think Cedric Wilson is another under-the-radar loss in that wide receiver group that nobody's really talking about.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard on the outside. Blake Jarwin never became the guy that they hoped he would be. So there were things going into seasons. I just want to see, what happens on the outside in that skill set. Noah Brown is a guy that I really like. I was happy to see them bring him back. I think he's one of the guys that does the dirty work for him that never gets a lot of credit. But they've got to have somebody step up. Can Michael Gallup step up and be that number one guy on the outside and complement what they have on the other side?
All right, we're going to leave it right there, but I have to agree with that. I think that was actually the worst mistake that the Cowboys made, was letting Cedric Wilson go as opposed to Amari Cooper. I can understand the Amari Cooper thing, but Cedric Wilson signed for $7.3 million, and you look at how the price of wide receivers has escalated, and now the Cowboys are scrambling to make a trade or to find a free agent replacement. The reality is they're not there, not at the price that they want to pay. But we have all weekend to talk about that stuff. But definitely I'm now in the planning stages of redoing and reinventing the studio down here. I've got some ideas that I am going to run up the flagpole. And if you have some suggestions on things that would make the show better, I know getting rid of me is probably what the trolls are going to say, but definitely leave a comment below and let me know what kind of things that you would like to see done here with the Joe Boo Sports Report. I'm Mark Holmes, and, well, you know how we roll.
Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.
You did one hell of a job, and the only thing else I got to say is, how about this, Cowboys?